Hey guys, welcome back. So today was a strong risk on day for the market, but the real story wasn't just that the indexes were green, it was who was the leadership. And so we had records for pretty much all the major indices. Huge move in software, mega cap tech was the leader, strength in healthcare, mixed read from financials and energy, and one single name move that really caught my attention, which was Hood, and we'll get to why later. So tonight I wanted to do a few things, just of course the market recap, hit the sectors and names that mattered, and then at the end I'll show you the Hood trade I was thinking about. I'm adding it to my AlphaHarmonic Trade OS. So when I'm looking for some real edge, I want to architect a trade, and so I'll go through that there. And just to start off all the videos I always do, this is not financial advice. It's just my process for reviewing the market, structuring trades, and logging some ideas. So the index read. So let's start off with the big picture. So of course we're going to go to the main indice here, the SPY. And so the S&P closed higher and hit another record. And the thing to notice was the QQQ pretty much there as well. And the Dow, it's looking great. And IWM, if I had this stuff, no extended hours, it would probably look even a little bit better there. I always get worried when some of these indices hit their highs in overnight markets and then don't replicate that during regular trading hours. But anyway, all four of the major indices today were pretty much in closing at the highs. And so the headline's kind of simple, and the main market takeaway is it's still in risk on mode. But the more important read that I got was not just that it's one mega cap stock dragging the whole tape together, but rather that the stronger leadership today was coming from software, AI, healthcare, and a few select catalyst names. But in general, the breadth was a bit better today. And so why did the market work today? So the first reason it worked was the geopolitical relief, and the reports around a possible extension of the U.S. and Iran ceasefire helped calm the oil risk narrative. And that matters because crude oil, which you can watch, obviously go into the futures on CL, or if you just want to look at an ETF, USO, it's kind of been cooling off quite a bit. It's been one of the biggest macro pressure points, and now we're chilling out a little bit. I know you guys want to see some charts. Let's bring this down to the 4 hours. And so, if oil spikes, the market has a lot to worry about with inflation and margins and the consumer and the Fed and everything. But today, equities were able to look through that risk. And so USO was down to flat, basically, depending on where your point of reference was. And the market treated the geopolitical news as a reason to stay in risk assets, particularly because of this. And so the second reason is the market was the earnings. It's been wondering about AI and software in particular. And so it's not been rewarding everything equally, but it's aggressively rewarding companies that can show the demand, the AI relevance, operating leverage, or a clean growth story. And I think the best example of that was Snowflake. And so if we look at what happened last night, I've been eyeing this very closely because I've been investing in a lot of the fallen IGV names, and you can kind of see what's been happening here. In fact, I've been long since the bottom of this W over here. Again, not financial advice, but you can see some of my portfolio holdings, at least in this portfolio. Got a lot of stuff that benefited from it, namely Microsoft, ServiceNow. But I'm not going to get into specific holdings right now. Let's continue on in the market there. And I just want to show you that Snowflake was a great example of why software and showing AI relevance was really important, plus the geopolitical. And so to that point of software was the main story. Snow exploded like 35% after hours. I think it was up even more, closer to 40% or something like that. And in fact, actually, you want to calculate it. Let's go ahead and draw a little trend line from this to the high here. We got 41.24% on that move. So that's pretty significant. And so that helped the broader IGV sector, like I was talking about, all software in general. And what I really liked was I had a ton of leaps on ServiceNow. I've closed out a few of those, but I'm also holding like even now the leverage version, so that I can commit some actual dollars to it in the long run here, because I think we were at generational lows and some kind of base factor issues that in a leveraged ETF, this was a great entry. So yeah, that snow really helped now. And, that's been one of the really beaten down names. And it finally caught a bid there. It was up about 6 to 7% on now. And then you also had Oracle. That's not something I've been playing. I don't actually like the debt story quite as much, but now has been my main play on that. So yeah, watching everything in IGV, especially things that were beaten down since SaaSpocalypse. In fact, I was on Meta so hard lately after that SaaSpocalypse stuff and was rewarded yesterday for it. But Microsoft today got a huge bid. So let's talk about that mega tech and AI. So mega cap tech also helped drive the day, and Microsoft was up about 3.5%, which was a huge move for a company that size. And that matters because Microsoft is kind of one of the cleanest AI and cloud bellwethers in the market, in my opinion. When Microsoft is leading, the market is saying the AI trade is not just about the chips. It's also about the cloud, enterprise software, infrastructure, and productivity, and also believing that enterprise software can weather that storm. So that means a lot to my actual thesis, my actual macro outlook. And then we also had NVIDIA because I've... I play a lot of laggards for sure, and we'll get into the quantitative methods I use. That's maybe for a longer video, but if you guys know me, I'm looking at the GEX, the fundamentals, and the differing perceptions, and we'll go to how I log that stuff. I think it'll be clear soon. But watching NVIDIA kind of hold today, it was firm. It was up under just a little under 1%, but in general, it was firm and nothing crazy, but supportive. And that means a lot to me, especially when, SOX, even looking at the leverage version, is just starting to kind of cap out. It's been a crazy run and NVIDIA didn't really partake in a lot of it. So it might be one of those NVIDIA long, SOX short, which is actually something I am in, NVIDIA long and playing on the leveraged inverse ETF. But got to be careful with that. But again, some base effect going on here. You could really utilize that. But semis held up okay. Marvel, it's actually kind of looking like broader semis in general. The AI complex didn't look exhausted today, but semis in particular, I think I'm favoring other names at this point. The names to watch, like I said, Microsoft and Meta is actually an AI play in my mind too because of the stack that they're building out. Healthcare was kind of quietly strong too. So XLV doesn't get all the love that it deserves, but it's looking like it's starting to have a little bit of that same W-shaped recovery. This isn't a long for me personally, but it was up about 1.4% today. And that's kind of a massive move. And I think it's mostly because of Lilly. So let's look at Lilly here. Yeah, that's a 4% move on a massive move for $1 trillion healthcare name. I wasn't in that either, but watching XLK and XLV, XLK, let's check it out here. These are some supportive breadth moves for sure. Mixed sector read for sure. And if we actually go to our market watch, you could see how we did today. Let's just go through a technology. XLK was up around 1.3%, healthcare, XLV 1.4%, software IGV 2.8%. SMH was positive, but nothing to write home about. XLY was slightly higher. XLC was also slightly higher. Financials were a little bit lower. XLE was slightly lower, but that plays into that larger oil and geopolitical situation. XLP was slightly lower. XLU was kind of the weakest, down more than 1%. And what that tells me is the market was not buying safety today. It was buying growth, AI software, healthcare, and select risk on stories. And no day is complete without watching the bonds. And so rates didn't get in the way today, really. The long bond ETF, TLT, I also really enjoyed TMF when we're down at these lower levels, but TLT was slightly higher, which means rates were not creating a major headwind for growth stocks. And again, I think this has a lot to do with USO being down, inflation, just changing expectations for the Fed. And so if TLT had been getting smoked and rates were ripping higher, I would have been much more cautious about chasing growth. But today, because this was also going up, the rate backdrop was pretty manageable. And so let's look at a few other single names today. Palantir, oh man, there's a lot of short interest on this that's probably starting to unwind. I got a few leap call spreads on this. Debit spreads, just trying to play a few more legs of it. But if I'm wrong, I can hold out. Same with coin, which was a little odd because Bitcoin had some massive liquidation over the evening. Tesla, we all know why that's going where it's going. But when Apple, Google, Meta, Amazon, Microsoft are all kind of raging hard, it's not a market to be bearish in. I mean, I'm being cautious for sure. You may have seen over here, I probably have.
And according to NBC News, the White House Deputy Chief of Staff.
Getting some news coming through. Sorry, I had to mute that there. You can tell I'm pretty risk on, but I have a few specific hedges. Like I said, I'm hedging against with the market leaders, so SOX. Got some shorts on there, but again, it's just hedged. It's mathematically driven. I'm not doing shorts for directional speculation. So anyway, if I had to summarize the single name action today, I'd say, Snow was the earnings explosion. Microsoft was the mega cap leader. Now was the software rebound name. Lilly was, carried health. Palantir showed speculative AI momentum. Coin showed risk appetite. Hood was the single name catalyst trade that stood out to me. And so let's talk about that, about Hood here, because I want to show you how I actually construct some of my trades. And the thing was, I was constructing this trade maybe 4 or 5 days ago, and now I have to actually think about that trade. So I'm going to show you how I log that stuff. So Hood was up around 11% today, which is amazing. I closed a bunch of my options on it, but I still have a few open. So part of the move was tied to Trump account news. So the Trump accounts launched, and the program was developed in collaboration with Robinhood, among others. And so that matters because it puts Hood inside a bigger account growth and long-term investing narrative. But the reason I'm interested in Hood wasn't just the headline today. That was just, something I'd been thinking about, and I got a little bit lucky that the market rewarded that today. But I've been thinking about the pattern day trader rule change. And historically, the PDT rule change was a major constraint for the smaller active traders. And so I'm thinking about people like on Robinhood. So the new framework replaces that. People with just $2,000 can essentially day trade. And I think the question is going to be, does Hood benefit from that disproportionately if smaller accounts become more active? And I think the answer is yes. And so that could mean more options contracts, more equity notional volume, more margin usage, more engagement, and maybe more Robinhood Gold conversion. So this is a thesis that I want to go along on personally. So I'm going to show you how I kind of construct this here. But before I actually jump into my platform where I do that, that you guys see me use all the time, I kind of want to define it, which is exactly, that kind of idea. And so give me 1 second. I'm going to switch over programs here. Hey guys, I'm over here in AlphaHarmonic Trade OS where I log my trades before I make them. You could use trade journals and all that kind of thing, but they tend to be after the fact. And so if you're a serious trader, if you're operating at a hedge fund or a small team of investors, or if you're a professional trader of any sort, you're generally logging your trades or designing your trades specifically. And so this is where I do it. And if you need to plan a trade, this is where I go, and particularly if I need to isolate the edge in a trade. A lot of YouTubers are talking about their edge, but sometimes their edge is not actually what they think it is. And if you know what I'm talking about. But I don't need this to be a quantitative finance explainer video. But again, if you're not familiar with this is just where I go to design my trades and to isolate my edge. And so for Hood, which is what I was talking about, the thesis is simple. I think that there is going to be a significant catalyst, a structural catalyst, because there's going to be more retail trading activity due to the change of the pattern day trader rule. Because by lowering it to a lower threshold, there'll be more people day trading. Hood's going to collect on that for all their different fees, higher engagement, more options activity, more account activity, et cetera, et cetera. But the important part is I don't want to just trade, or I don't want to just confuse Hood specific thesis with generic beta. Hood can trade with QQQ, RQF, XLF, Bitcoin, BTC, IBIT, whatever, coin, and other brokerage names. So the architecture of the trade is about isolating whether this move is actually hood specific. So essentially, what am I going to do? Am I going to buy shares? Am I going to buy options? And then am I going to short anything to get rid of the other factor exposures that hood has? Because hood is exposed to market beta. And like I said, QQQ can represent some of that, or even specific ETFs can represent some of that market exposure that it has. So I want to short some of that to isolate just hood. And so this is where I do it. So if you're not familiar with this platform, you essentially come up with your summary. And I've already created a trade ticket here and started designing it. How much money I want to put towards this trade. Am I considering it? I actually am in this trade, so it's actually active. So let me go ahead and save those changes. Let refresh. Okay, so it's active over here. This is where your actual trades in your current work are. And just some summaries, what I think the catalyst is. I've written it out, which portfolio I'm doing this in. The program gives you essentially a write-up there of everything. And, this isn't a tutorial, but if you guys want to see that, please leave some comments below, or if you like just the market recaps, I can do those in separate videos. But anyway, I'm starting to build out this trade, and it's not going to be shares long. It's going to be long options, long calls. And it's convexity is the trade role. So I'm not going to go through all of this. There's actually, help buttons if you hover over anything. And then after that, I am going to do my actual thesis work, just so I can really think about it. And I don't fill this out for everything, but I've been playing this trade for a long time. A lot of times it's just the summary and the actual trade construction ticket. And so the trade construction here is a lot of it's in written word. And then a lot of it is actually, filled out here, so like I said, I bought 10 calls. Entry price was $10 when I did it. I'm writing out my delta and my theta. I didn't capture the vega when I did it. And then I'm also going to go through, like I said, and try to factor. I'm going to try to do some factor isolation. Talking too quick over here. And I think that the primary is going to be ARC F. And because I just don't want fintech beta in this, even though I think they're going to do well, but I think that's a good way to hedge it out. So I'm going to do this with different ratios, probably buy, some way OTM put options to get the right amount of exposure to these. And then I'm going to go ahead and execute and put it in my blotter here because I actually did do it, like I said. And I am going to put my risk exposure in here and monitor it over time. And then when it's over, I am going to do a postmortem, but you can see that's just the template values here because I haven't quite done it yet. But anyway, yeah, so that's kind of, the basics of how I'm modeling this trade. I'm not going to go into the specifics. I'm not here to give you guys free trades or trade ideas. Again, not financial advice, just what I'm doing. But, the question isn't really, did hood go up? Because today it did go up and it went up big. In fact, let me just go to TradingView because I am out of Thinkorswim at the moment, and we can just look at hood here and a very simple chart. It's doing like pretty good. I kind of hate that chart. But today, that's starting to look like we're getting ready for what I like to trade because I'm looking at this on the weekly. But anyway, I'm not, like I said, I'm not trading directionally. I'm trading based on the factor because I'm getting rid of other directional factors and I'm trying just to trade the PDT rule the best that I can. So anyway, it's not, like I said, do I believe hood's going to go up? It's do I believe hood is going to go up because of what I'm trying to trade? So I would try to keep this short. I know I'm going over time, just showing you all of my different ways that I log this trade. But I actually took it. So if you want more market recaps like this, subscribe. I'm going to do this a lot more frequently instead of just showing people privately how to use this software. And so, subscribe if you like to see it. I'll keep doing more of these. And after the close, where I take what happened in the market and turn it into a little recap and then maybe one structured trade ticket. Let me know if you like that. If you don't like that, maybe I won't do it so much. And let me know in the comments if you want more single stock breakdowns or way more technical analysis. I wanted to get through a lot today, as this is the first one I've done in a really long time. So drop any tickers you want me to look at, and I'll start adding more names into those nightly market reviews. Thanks a lot.